Some big names, both real and fictional, with new TV shows devoted to them. Jack Reacher, Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee, Bill Cosby. Let's talk TV. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to TV News and Reviews for the week. We're going to talk about 6 new shows. Reacher on Amazon Prime, Pam and Tommy. We need to talk about Cosby, which is a docuseries about Bill Cosby, of course. In From the Cold on Netflix, Supernatural Academy, and Astrid and Lilly Save the World. We're going to talk about all of that, but first, of course, we got to get to the TV news for the week. A lot in terms of renewals and cancellations, specifically on HBO. For some reason, they just gave us a whole bunch of new things to talk about with their renewals, and we'll start there, I guess. So, How To with John Wilson. Season 3 already is coming to HBO. I graded that like okay, I think maybe C+ or something back when I graded that. But it is getting a lot of love from the fans and as well the critics. Season 2 nabbed a Writers Guild nomination, so obviously a nice pedigree there. Southside and the Other Two renewed at HBO Max. I am not really familiar with these shows. They started airing their first seasons before I was doing TV news and reviews, but Comedy Central was the start for both of those series, Southside and The Other Two, and then after the first season, I believe, they both went to HBO Max, so now they are renewed for season 3, which will be coming out. The Gilded Age renewed for season 2, something I really enjoyed. I just reviewed that a couple of weeks ago. Season 1 is currently still airing. It's a weekly show, and we'll wrap up March 21st. And then this one, this is going to be big for people. Peacemaker coming back for season 2. The season finale just hit on HBO Max, and so we're going to get a season 2. John Cena will be back, and James Gunn will once again write every single episode. So that's going to be fun. I have not finished the season yet, but I forget what I watched before reviewing it, either 2 episodes or 3 episodes, but great show, a lot of fun, so I think people are going to be happy about that. And then one that I thought was merely okay, over on Hulu, How I Met Your Father has already been renewed for season 2. There is a 20-episode season coming, which is rare for a streaming service. But sometimes comedies will do that. Netflix, on occasion, will have like a batch of 10 episodes, then wait like 3 months, and then another batch of 10 episodes with some of their comedy shows. So I guess I can see that. But yeah, the first season only had the 10 episodes, and then the new one will be double that. But that also makes sense because the original series, How I Met Your Mother, was on CBS, so there were 22 to 24 episodes per season when that was on. And then in terms of programs ending, well, we've got Mrs. Maisel. So I am reviewing the new season of Mrs. Maisel week by week with my buddy Melissa. We just put the first one up. But that has been renewed for season 5, and it has been announced that is the end. It will be 5th and final for that program. So, yes, sort of renewed also, but I'll put it in series endings because now we know that will be the end of that. And then also Love, Victor, the 3rd season, which will be premiering June 15th. That will be the end of that program on Hulu, and a shrinkage a little bit of the episodes too. It's going to only be 8 episodes for that final season as opposed to the 10 that we've had previously. A movie that I loved, Love, Simon, begat the program Love, Victor, which I never did watch the 2nd season of. I should get on that, but really, really enjoyable first season. And then this is an interesting one. Promised Land, which just premiered a few weeks ago on ABC, is already going to be done from broadcast. But the good news is, back in the day, you would film like 13 episodes, let's say, for your half season. And if you got canceled after 8 episodes, well, that was it. The other 5 just never saw the light of day. Maybe you would get lucky, get like a DVD release or something. But now, well, what do? You shift it to your streaming site, and ABC is owned by Disney. Disney owns Hulu, so the remaining episodes of Promised Land will be on Hulu week by week. And that starts March 1st. So they have not officially canceled the program, but that usually is a sign that there will not be a season 2. So I kind of enjoyed Promised Land. I thought it was sort of a fun soap. But I don't know. It's hard to tell what is a hit these days on a broadcast network, because something that just 5 or 6 years ago would have been, an easy cancellation is like, well, okay, you're only getting, 2 million viewers over the air, but how does it do on streaming sites? How does it do on demand? It's hard to say, but obviously they were not happy with what was going on there. All right, so for odds and ends, we have some new season announcements for air dates. Better Call Saul, the final season for that, finally is here. It's going to premiere on April 18th, almost 2 entire years after the last season wrapped up. And this will be broken up into 2 parts. We're going to have 7 episodes through April and May, and then 6 more episodes in July, and that will close out Better Call Saul. Barry returns April 24th. That has been a 3 freaking year hiatus on that show. I know a lot of this has to do with COVID, but still, it's hard to believe we've had 3 years without Barry. An 8-episode season 3 is coming. It's not even that many episodes, but I think the other 2 seasons were also 8 episodes, so we can kind of forgive that. Stranger Things Volume 4 is coming in 2 parts. Volume 1 is going to premiere May 27th. Volume 2 will quickly follow on July 1st. It's Netflix, so they will all drop at once, but only about a month between then, so that's not bad. And apparently these are what they're calling supersized episodes, which means we'll have really more content than we did in the previous seasons, in addition to the episode increase. So that is good news for Stranger Things fans. I know there's a ton of you out there. Okay, and then finally, The Problem with Jon Stewart, that is coming back March 3rd, but it will return with a weekly format. When that first dropped in the fall, it was bi-weekly. I think there was only 4 or 5 episodes. It wasn't many, but it was every 2 weeks, and this one they're going to do every week, which for me is very good. I mean, I used to watch Jon Stewart every night, so, getting him every week would be very nice. All right, moving on to some other new programs that sort of are, I don't know. I guess these could fall technically under reboots and spin-offs, but they're sort of based on other things. So Snoop and Kelly Clarkson are going to co-host NBC's American Song Contest. It's going to be modeled after the Eurovision contest, which of course is very popular. Will Ferrell just did a movie about it a couple of years ago. So it's going to be a live program. It lasts 8 weeks. It's going to premiere March 21st. And the pair have worked together on a program before with The Voice. Season 20 of The Voice, I don't even know when that was. It's hard to believe that they've had 20 cycles already of that show. But Kelly was one of the coaches, of course, as she, I think, still is. And then Snoop was a mentor on that season. So I don't know if he mentored her contestants, but in any event, they sort of worked a little bit together with that. And then I guess this really counts as a reboot, but Lingo, the TV game show, is coming to CBS primetime this fall with RuPaul as the host. Now, this is, you would think that this is inspired by the Wordle craze, where you have the 5-letter words, because really Wordle is just lingo. If you remember that game show from maybe 15 years ago with Chuck Woolery on Game Show Network, then they revived it with one of the blue-collar comedy guys. I want to say it was Bill Engvall hosted. That was maybe 7 or 8 years ago. But the roots of the program go back to the late 80s. It was on in the 87-88 TV season. I'm not sure if any of that stuff still exists. They used to wipe a lot of the game shows up through the 80s, but in any event, I love RuPaul. I love Lingo. It was a fun show, and Wordle is a fun game that I enjoy. So that's coming to primetime with CBS. So I guess as we're sort of in this reboot frame of mind here, let's continue with some of these. Beauty and the Beast prequel. Now, this was announced, I don't know, about a year and a half ago. Josh Gad and Luke Evans were going to reprise their role from the live-action Beauty and the Beast, but this could be dead at Disney+. A delay between creative elements and scheduling challenges has caused Disney+ to sort of pump the brakes for now. They have not officially called it dead in the water, but they're not moving forward at this moment with that. Fox Entertainment has bought the Gumby family of characters and will reimagine them as new animated characters and in a new live action series as well. Both are being developed. And every so often, I talk about something on my show that I just happen to have in my basement here. I have a bunch of up here, like old cartoon DVDs and stuff. I actually have, if you don't know what Gumby is, I have two Gumby collections. They're these like, I don't know if they were claymation or what the heck they were really, but they were like little bendable characters, and it sort of was claymation, I guess. But I watched it when I was very, very little. I collect so many things. I've never actually cracked those open, but I used to watch Gumby as a kid. So I don't know how excited I am about a 2022 version of Gumby, but it was cute for 60, 70 years ago. The Rookie is going to have a possible spinoff. Niecy Nash is going to guest star in a 2-episode arc as the oldest rookie in the FBI Academy. So, of course, Nathan Fillion's the oldest rookie in his precinct, and now we're going to do the oldest rookie in the FBI Academy. But I love Niecy Nash, so I'm all on board with this. This will be a backdoor pilot, and should ABC pick it up, it will launch a new series for the Rookie universe. The big networks are now all about all of the franchises. Fox has the 911 things. And ABC already has, well, do they have any? I guess it's mostly CBS and NBC, because CBS has all the NCISs and all the CSIs and all the FBIs. And then NBC has the Chicago shows, Law and Order shows. So maybe ABC doesn't have any currently. But so they want to do a rookie sort of franchise. Blade Runner 2099 is in the works for Amazon, and Ridley Scott, the director of the original movie, is going to produce here. This is meant to be a direct sequel to the film 2049, which was the second in the Blade Runner run. So now we're going 50 years beyond that to 2099. What else? Bloom County. Fox is developing a TV show version of the famous 1980s comic strip. Bloom County. Berkeley Breathed, I never quite did know how to pronounce that, is on board as producer. He is a very reclusive dude too. He doesn't do interviews, nothing. So it's interesting they got him on board, but he's going to co-write and executive produce the project. And then the biggest one for sure is Futurama, that has been announced over the last couple of weeks. This is returning for a 20-episode season on Hulu. Hulu is all aboard these 20-episode seasons. I am here for it. 5 seasons on Fox for Futurama, then 3 more additional ones on Comedy Central, which included the movies as well. And that all ended about 10 years ago. So they're going back to the well. Most of the original people are on board. Creators Matt Groening and David X. Cohen are going to return as producers. And original stars Billy West, who voiced Fry, Katie Seagal, who voiced Leela, and ensemble players who voiced many of the characters: Tress McNeely, Maurice LaMarche, Phil Lamar. A lot of these people do mostly voice work and so many different shows all over the board. But the only holdout still, unless this has changed in the 3 days since I've read this article, John DiMaggio, who provided the voice for Bender, is finalizing a deal to return, but nothing is inked up yet. He is apparently asking for more money than anybody else, and he says, well, these people should all ask for the same as I'm getting. So I don't know. We may hear something about that in the next week or so. But Futurama, I'm a fan. I love The Simpsons, so anything Matt Groening does is typically in my wheelhouse. I never did see the Comedy Central seasons. I did see one of the movies, The Creature with a Billion Backs or something, but I mostly watched it when it was on Fox. In the original run. So, all right, let's move on from the news to the reviews. We've got 6 shows to talk about and a few pretty big ones up front here, and then we'll get into some smaller ones that we'll just spend a few minutes with. But Reacher, we're going to talk about first. This is based on Jack Reacher, the character that Tom Cruise had a run with in a couple of movies. And one of the big complaints that I knew about was that Tom Cruise looked nothing like this character was supposed to. He is supposed to be this big, menacing dude, and Tom Cruise, as we know, maybe is not quite in that wheelhouse. I enjoyed the first Jack Reacher movie. I thought the second one was horrible, and everything that is wrong with action movies today. But here we have a new Reacher starring Alan Ritchson, who I am unfamiliar with. I don't know if he's done anything that I know. Let's see. Smallville. He did Aquaman on Smallville. I never watched that show. But all right, so he has that, and then he also has more DC stuff with the HBO Max series Titans. So all right, so he's a big dude. He's been around, and he's big. I mean, physically. But this particular series, at least the first season, is based on Killing Floor, which is the first of the novels, 1997 novel, and it was the first one that Lee Child did. And this basically gives us sort of the basics of the character, but also the first Jack Reacher movie did the same. So if you saw that, you're kind of already familiar a little bit with who this character is. So in this version, though, he is a former U.S. Army policeman, and he's visiting this town in Georgia and quickly becomes embroiled in some interesting things between the law enforcement in the town and some other criminal activity going on, and he finds himself sort of at the center of it all. Malcolm Goodwin is here as a police captain and the chief detective that Reacher kind of goes back and forth with. And then there's also Willa Fitzgerald as this police officer who, Reacher kind of has a thing for and is nice to, and she's nice back and all of that. I thought this show is interesting because it is not exactly what I expected. The movies, I guess, because they didn't have quite all this time to maybe build up the character a little bit, was a lot more, I felt, action based. There are a couple of really good action sequences in the first episode, but it's mostly character development. Now, in the second episode, we dive a little more into the action, but the drips of action that we got in that first episode, I think really worked, especially when you're sort of unsure not necessarily what side of the law Reacher is on, but where he stands with some of these people, because he's obviously, thumbing his nose at authority, but also they are trying to convince him to help them, and all of this stuff. So he ends up in jail and ends up with this shy roommate, and we don't do spoilers here, but things happen, and he presents his big bad self to some of the other inmates and lets them know who his boss. I like this character of Reacher. I like the version that they have. I can see why Cruise maybe wasn't the best idea for the role in the movies, but look, if anybody's going to sell an action movie, it is Tom Cruise, especially eight years ago, whenever that first Reacher movie came out. So I get it. But I think maybe this guy is better physically suited for the demands of the role. My issue with the show is I don't actually think he's a particularly adept actor. Now, I understand the Reacher character is soft-spoken, so it is, sort of understood that, all right, well, maybe he doesn't need to emote that much or whatever. But half the time he's mumbling his lines. I don't know what he's saying. I watch most shows with closed captioning on, just in case I'm eating something crunchy or I just, don't want to have the volume too loud or whatever. So I watch a lot of my shows with the captions. I'm telling you, if I didn't have captions on for this show, I don't know if I'd know what was going on. No, it wasn't. That part was very kind of annoying, and I get that it goes with the character, but I found it to be a bit off-putting anyway. But physically, I think this is the guy for the role. And in terms of the script, I think it's okay for an action show. Not necessarily blowing me away. It's not quite as engaging as, say, Jack Ryan. But I like where it's going. I'm going to leave Reacher with a B. So up next, we are going to go to Hulu for Pam and Tommy. This is about Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee, and essentially details the theft of a sex tape that they made, which became very, very famous in the late 90s. I had a copy on VHS, a bootleg copy, and I think many, many people did. This was quite the scandal. One of the first, or maybe the first, I guess, celebrity sex tapes. And we have a very cool cast here. You've got Lily James as Pam Anderson, Sebastian Stan, the Winter Soldier himself, as Tommy Lee. He's great in this role, pitch perfect. And then you've got Seth Rogen as a contractor who is the person who steals the tape, and Nick Offerman as his uncle, who they go into business together and try and sell the tape. You also have Taylor Schilling from Orange is the New Black as an ex-porn star and an ex of the Seth Rogen character. And even, from producers, you've got Dave Franco, Evan Goldberg, Seth Rogen's longtime partner, producing here. And this is something for me that is very memorable. I mean, I was in college and shortly out of college when this hit, and it was very talked about. And I'm a music fan, so I know Motley Crue very well. I'm a TV fanatic. You guys know this. I can't say I was a Baywatch fan. I thought it was stupid, and I also thought Home Improvement was stupid, Pamela Anderson's other show. But I was obviously well aware of Pamela Anderson, and you would have to be living under a rock not to be in the 90s. So I really was like, okay, I'm going to maybe fine-tooth comb this and see, how many mistakes are they making and what is true to life and what's not. And what's interesting is a lot of this stuff, maybe the timeline's a little skewed, but a lot of the stuff is directly from the real story. And the two main people involved have very different viewpoints on the series. Tommy Lee actually, has come out and said he's very happy with this series. Sebastian Stan's doing a great job, of playing me. And this really is, basically what happened. Pamela Anderson, on the other hand, is like, this I don't want anything to do with. It's bringing up some horrible memories for me and some trauma and PTSD from a horrible incident, which I totally get. I do get it. But I have to say, I've seen now 4 episodes, and I personally think that Pam Anderson is painted in a fairly sympathetic light. She obviously voiced this opinion before it even aired, so she didn't see it. But if you watch it, I at least found her to be a sympathetic character in this whole thing. Because you feel bad for her. This is really, I mean, it's a breach of her privacy and all of that. The same kind of stuff, Jennifer Lawrence went through a few years ago with her leak of the phone pictures. And, we've seen it now many, many times in the new age, but this was something wholly different back in the day. And I think they're capturing the time period very well. I didn't think Seth Rogen was maybe going to be a good fit for this, and he sure is. He is really doing the work of this character, and he's believable. It's one of the few things I've seen that aren't like overly dramatic, that I sort of get lost in the Seth Rogen thing, and I'm like, okay, that's not Seth Rogen. I do believe he's sort of this other character. And I say not dramatic because he's done a few dramatic things where I definitely don't think he's doing the Seth Rogen thing. But here, this is, I would say, more of a comedy, I guess, because it is sort of like a farce in the way that they're trying to track him down and all of that. So I don't know, maybe dramedy is more appropriate. But one of my issues with it, though, is that it's a little bit all over the place with its handling of the timeline. And by that, I don't mean that things are off a little bit with when they happen, but they keep jumping back and forth from the present to the past. Oh, let's find out, what was happening when Pam and Tommy met. And then let's flash forward to the current day when they're trying to sell the tape. And then let's go back to when they made the tape. And then let's go again to the present where they're trying to track down the tape. So it's a little bit, I just don't think it's as clean as maybe it should be. But look, hey, it's rock and roll, right? Rock and roll's not supposed to be clean. So, okay, we'll give it maybe a pass for that. But I find the show very enjoyable. I think the two leads now, Pamela Anderson obviously has enormous breasts. That's one of the things going for her. Lily James does not, and they don't really pad her up that well. So believability factor, physically, I don't know. And then they get into some really sort of bizarre creative things too in this series. For example, in episode 2, Tommy Lee's penis talks to him. It's like a character unto itself. Jason Mantzoukas voices it. I don't know how much I love some of that stuff. It seems a little bit sort of bizarre. And then the rest of the episodes I've seen, they don't go back to that motif. So that could be just like a one-time thing. I don't know. So it's a little all over the place, but it's hella enjoyable. And I think the two leads really, really sell these characters incredibly well, especially Sebastian Stan. I think he's amazing as Tommy Lee. So I'm going to give Pam and Tommy a B+. Next is We Need to Talk About Cosby. This is a Showtime miniseries, 4 episodes, and it is, of course, a docuseries because it is all about Bill Cosby and W. Camus Bell, who is a comedian, but also kind of a, he's on CNN a lot as like a correspondent. So he's a little bit more than just, okay, let's do some laughs. You're a comedian. He's definitely more of like, kind of like a Jon Stewart or Trevor Noah type of guy, I feel like. And he's done a lot of these sort of expose pieces with CNN. Nothing quite to this degree, I don't think. But essentially, this is an interview documentary with a bunch of comedians, journalists, survivors of, Cosby's alleged stuff there. And it talks about Bill Cosby as a man and a black activist and all of these things that we knew about him way back when to who he is today, known as a rapist and a convicted rapist at that, and what that means for his legacy, what that means for him, what that means for the black community. And here again, I only point this out because this is kind of my animated shelf up here, and I have Gumby, but I also do actually have the Fat Albert box set as well. Bill Cosby, obviously, in that. I just like to show you guys things from, I call this room the archives. I like to show you things from the archives. If I don't purposely pull things out, because I have shelves all over this room, but sometimes something's just right in front of me. So anyway, I am a Cosby fan from way back. I do have The Cosby Show on DVD as well. And this docuseries is incredibly interesting because it asks some interesting questions that I don't think there are answers for, because it's kind of opinion based, but it is like a, how do you separate the artist from their art? And it's something that I think we've been dealing with, certainly in the Me Too movement, right? But even before that with Mel Gibson and, Woody Allen, I think we all knew stuff was getting weird there, like in the 90s and the 2000s. And R. Kelly, of course, way back when, even before the recent stuff. Look, I love him, but Michael Jackson as well. Who knows? I know there's different schools of thought on that too. But it is an interesting thing of like, how do you reconcile what someone has done with the enormous legacy that came before? And this docuseries told me things I had never known about Cosby and his career. I didn't know that he won, like, I think it was 5 Grammy Awards in a row for Comedy Album of the Year. He won 3 Emmys in a row for I Spy. I didn't know that. He did in the late 60s a primetime special based on all of the black history that we weren't being taught in schools, like the Tulsa Wall Street, the bombing, all of that stuff. So I was learning a lot about Cosby's legacy myself as we were trying to reconcile it with everything going on the last few years, all of the women coming forward and this, that, and the other thing. And some of the Cosby Show people are actually interviewed, not a ton, and certainly not big names. It's not like we're seeing Felicia Rashad on here, but Jeffrey Owens, who played the husband of, I think, Denise on the show, Dougie Doug, Bill's co-star in the CBS version of Cosby, and a couple other people as well. And then, some documentarians and journalists about black history and about, sexual culture and all of that sort of thing. So interesting interviews. We do go back to the same interviews a lot, which I'm okay with, because at least we're getting to know, how people are thinking and what I don't know. I don't need a new person to be interviewed every 5 minutes. I sort of like that through 4 episodes, we're seeing a lot of the same people because we get to know them a little bit through that, and what their sort of area of expertise is, etc. But What I love, I think, the most about this is that we don't necessarily offer answers at the end of it. In fact, the end is very powerful at the end of the 4 episodes. But yeah, I really enjoyed watching this. I think it is eye opening. It is shocking and horrifying, but it is also very, contemplative and okay. Is it okay to appreciate everything that this man did, that was so great, mixed with the severe disappointment and horror of some of the other things. So I think it is a really, really well done series, and I think if you have Showtime, I urge you to see it. Yeah, I'm going to leave We Need to Talk About Cosby with an A minus. Very, very well done. All right, so next we will go to Netflix for In From the Cold, and this is a spy thriller, basically. It follows a Russian, or an ex-Russian spy, I should say, played by Margarita Levieva, and she is a divorced mother. She has a lovely daughter, but she is living secretly in the U.S., and through some things, the CIA learns about her real identity and forces her back into her old life. And of course, she can't tell anybody. She got to keep it under wraps. And we move on from there. This show is interesting to me personally because I'm currently going through the TV show The Americans, which it's a little bit different because in that our quote-unquote heroes, I guess, are Russian spies, and it takes place in the 80s during the Cold War. Here, this is more present day. We have a kind of a different perspective, but I think there's a lot of elements here that are very much trying to do what The Americans does, and I'm not sure it ever even comes in the ballpark. The Americans, I'm learning, is one of the true great shows of the last 20 years. I'm loving going through it. I'm in season 2 right now. And this show has nothing on it. But let's not even compare it to The Americans. Let's just talk about it on its own merits. The acting is very weak. The dialogue is also weak. There are a couple of interesting action sequences, I have to say. And I do sort of like the whole thing of like, okay, let's keep, what I do from my family. That's something it's been very popular in the last 20 years, right? Between Weeds and Breaking Bad, and The Americans is one of them. And so it's pretty common trope. It's one that I don't really tire of. I do kind of like it here as well. But the acting's just not very good. It's hard to sort of get on board when you're kind of cringing at some of the dialogue and some of the choices of performance. So I can't leave this with too high a grade. But like I said, these last 3, I don't think we need to spend too much time on them. I've kind of said my piece about this. It's not that great. I'm going to leave In From the Cold with a C minus. Supernatural Academy is up next on Peacock. This is based on a young adult book series, and it is an animated, fantasy show. There's 16 episodes listed, but I think really each episode is in 2 parts. So I feel like there's really only 8 episodes. But I did not recognize really any of the names here. Larissa Diaz, Gigi Saul Guerrero, Cardi Wong. These are names I don't know. But basically we follow 2 teenage girls here, about high school age, like 16, 17. And one of them is living in the human world with her mother and her twin sister, Jessa, and they both go to the Supernatural Academy, and the twin sister is a werewolf. So they were split up at birth, don't really know of the other, and then they end up coming together, and end up learning all about, the one ends up learning all about the supernatural world, and we have, trolls here, and vampires, and mermaids, and all manner of things, in this new world that she's exploring. So this is an all-right show on the surface. The writing's fine, the voice work is okay, but the glitchy animation is so off-putting and distracting that I found it a little bit hard to even follow along because it was just very distracting. It reminded me a lot of like early CGI stuff, like movies in the early 2000s that weren't up to the level of like a Shrek or a Pixar movie, like an Off Company in 2004, like the people that put out like the first Hoodwinked movie or Everyone's Hero or Fly Me to the Moon, like one of those movies where, but even more primitive because this is, a TV show. It's just so distracting and off-putting. Other than that, it's definitely trying to go for like a Buffy vibe. It never quite gets there. Actually, both of these last two shows we're going to talk about, both of them sort of have a Buffy vibe. Maybe the next one we're going to talk about has even more of one than this. But I definitely got a little bit of a Buffy thing here. It's hard not to, I guess, when you're a 16-year-old girl and there's vampires and you're the hero of the story. Okay, you're gonna get that comparison. I didn't necessarily dislike the show though, with the character development and the basic story is okay. But just that animation, it's so distracting. So I have to leave this one, with a pretty middle of the road grade. So I think we'll give Supernatural Academy a C. So finally, we go to Astrid and Lilly Save the World. And again, this one really sort of apes off of the Buffy thing. But in this, we have Astrid, who is played by Jana Morrison, and Lilly, played by Samantha Acoin, who are two high school outcasts and unexpectedly open a portal to another dimension and have to battle monsters in there to try and save the world. So here, and this is live action, so a little bit more of a Buffy vibe with that. It is on Sci-Fi Network, by the way, which has produced some okay shows since I've been doing this program in 2019. The Chucky remake, or I guess technically sequel, but the TV show Chucky, I really enjoy. They've done a couple other things. The one with Steve the Pirate from Dodgeball. I always forget his real name because I know him as Steve the Pirate. But his show, Resident Alien, fantastic. Love it. So unfortunately, though, the other side is they have budget problems, and a lot of these shows suffer horribly because of it. And that sort of, I think, goes hand in hand with poor acting. I forget what the show was called, but I did one in December on Sci-Fi that was like a D. It was just the acting was so horrible. And here we see that again. These are almost like, Disney Channel rejects or Nickelodeon rejects, the sort of overacting and not emoting properly. It was, again, distracting is a word I might use. And clearly they're going after the Buffy demographic here. At this point in time, in 2022, I get it. Most of the sci-fi writers out there grew up on Buffy, grew up on the X-Files. So most of the shows we get are going to have that kind of vibe, especially one set in a high school is going to have a Buffy flavor. I get it. But there's certainly better ways to do it than either of these two shows. This one is even worse, I think, than Supernatural Academy, because at least I think that one had more interesting characters to build off of. This does not even quite go there. So I'm going to leave Dash and Lily Astrid and Lily. Dash and Lily was a Netflix show, but Astrid and Lily Save the World gets a D+ from me. So, all right, that's going to do it. I told you those last three we were going to kind of zip through. So, I thank you for watching. Next week, trying to think what has come out recently that's real big, because I know I'm always sort of behind by a week or two. I know there's a couple big names out there that, Bel Air is probably the biggest one. Yeah, on Peacock. We'll definitely get to that. I am debating whether or not to do the new Law and Order, because it's technically just season 21 or season 20 or whatever of the old Law and Order. So I imagine there's going to be nothing new there. So I think I may skip that one, but I think there's that very Dirty Dancing show on Fox I'd like to get to as well. So more things in the pipeline. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.